All right, recording.
Recording?
Yes.
Are we recording?
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Tonight we are on to Shabbetai Zvi. We're going to deal with the first part of his life, and we're going to deal with the ideas that make the movement go. So far, it's been like a background, older Kabbalah and Abu Lafia, who was a Messiah. And then we did the Lurianic Kabbalah, and we saw their potentials. But we did not see the ideas of the very movement itself. So what I'm going to do here for you is I'm going to play something for you as an introduction. Okay. I need to share my screen in order to do that, to share something on my screen. I'm going to share with you a short humorous clip. I hope it doesn't offend anybody. The clip is in Hebrew, so I'll simultaneously translate while it goes. Some of you who follow the news might have heard about these clips because about a month or two ago, the people who make these clips were in the news. It's called HaYehudim Ba'im, the Jews are coming. And they make fun of all kinds of things in Jewish history, back to the Tanakh and up to our very day. And they did a couple of skits on Shabbetai Zvi. So I want to introduce you to the main characters in the story of Shabbetai Zvi with a little video clip. It's only about 3 minutes, okay? And I'll translate in English as the clip goes, okay? You should be able to see my screen. You see like a video on my screen, everybody?
Yes.
Yes, good. So let's play and I'll translate as it goes.
ממי, תגידי, ראית את הנעלי בית שלי האלה בצורת שפן?
במאה ה-17 הגיע שבתאי צבי לסלוניקי והכריז
17th century, he comes to Saloniki and declares himself, oh, I got the wrong one, I'm sorry. I wanted to do this one later. I'm sorry, I saved both of them and I had wanted to do this one later because it's about a later part of the story. So what we will do is, wait, I'll just open the other one. Hold on. I apologize for the error. Where is it? Shabbetai Zvi, 1 second. Okay.
You might also want to stop the video when you translate because it's hard to hear you over them.
Here it is. Okay, that's what I'll do then. I'll also turn down the volume. Maybe that will help. Hello. Welcome to the home of Shabbetai Zvi, the greatest false messiah of them all. Before we begin, I must emphasize that everything here is a complete lie. Correct? Understood? Everything is an illusion. It's all just it's just foolishness. You cannot imply anything serious about what we do here. Even as on his wall, Shabbetai Zvi, the false messiah. So how can I help you? Good. We're going to be getting married soon. And we wanted to know if you could bless us. Well, before we begin, it's all not real. It's not real. It's just foolishness. I have no powers. I've got nothing. It's nothing. It's just a big lie. See, it even says on my door, the false messiah. Let's begin. Okay. I'm getting into the zone. Nah, there's no real zone. It's just an act. Abracadabra. I won't translate that. What happened here now is that I fought the chicken, and now I can bless you. The chicken won. You are blessed. I told you he would bless us. Yes, yes. I remind you again, everything here is stupidity. It's all an act. It's not real. I'm a false Messiah. False, false, false. Look how many. Can you also prophesy our future? No, I can't. I'm a false Messiah. I'm not a false prophet. But my buddy is a false Messiah. Natan, get up. And here's Nathan of Gaza, the false prophet of Shabbetai Zvi. How you doing, buddy? We've got this nice couple here who wants a false prophecy. No problem. Let's see what we've got here. We read. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm a Achashverosh. Kafatz li ala rosh. No. It says, don't worry, everything will be fine. But it's a lie. It's a lie. Yeah, we know. I can walk again. I can walk again. Oh, no. I think we're done here. I don't believe it. He said I can walk again, too. I walk. You see? Yes, I see. He gave me back my sight. If you're over there, can you find the 10 shekels that fell on the floor? I didn't drop it. It was the chicken. Okay. So we'll end with that foolishness. You've just through this foolishness been introduced to the, I just need to bring this back. You've been introduced to the three main characters, we should say, in the story of Shabbetai Zvi. There is, of course, the false Messiah himself, Shabbetai Zvi. Then there is the prophet of the false Messiah. He's the man who made the man. He would have been, Shabbetai Zvi would have been on the sidelines. He would have been a footnote in history had it not been for this prophet who turned him into the Messiah of the Jewish world. And the Messiah's name was Natan of Gaza, Natan Me'aza, Nathan of Gaza. And you have the false prophet, of course, and you have the false prophet, the prophet of the Messiah. Messiah is a king. You know, kings in the Bible had their prophets. Well, Shabbetai Zvi had his prophet. And I'm calling them false, false, false. But you'll notice that the people in the skit didn't consider themselves false. Yes, Jennifer?
The false Messiah was Shabbetai Zvi. His false prophet was
Natan of Gaza.
And who's the third one?
The third one are those two people you saw there, meaning the masses of Jews, okay, who accepted this Messiah and this prophet. That's who they represent in the skit. Now the skit is silly, and the skit, you know, it may convey some very, very basic historical facts, like those two names, okay? But beyond that, there's not very much in the skit which is even slightly accurate, okay? These people did not go around, of course, it's obvious, right? They did not go around calling themselves false messiahs and calling themselves false prophets. Maybe this skit is trying to say, well, it's so obvious. Well, maybe it wasn't so obvious.
And
right?
I assume they did not use rubber chickens.
They did not use rubber chickens, but even that was meant to convey a little bit of something from the Shabbetai Zvi story. He says, I had to fight off the chicken. There was something, there was a certain demon that Shabbetai Zvi had to fight off. And we'll see what that demon was as we do a bit of the story, okay? You've been introduced a little bit to the names of the main characters, And now let's get to the more serious part of tonight's class. We'll go back to these skits once more. They did a skit about another point in his story that's a bit funnier and even a bit more connected to the historical point. And we'll do that when we get to it. In tonight's class, we're going to connect Shabbetai Zvi's thought to what came before, not just his thought, but the thought of the movements. The thought of the movement didn't necessarily come from Shabbetai Zvi himself. The early career of Shabbetai Zvi, and we'll even touch a little bit tonight on the remainder of his career. What we will not do tonight, what we will not get to tonight, is the end of his career. Okay, we'll mention it, but we won't do it. And the aftermath of his career. Because when his career ended, and even when he died, it didn't stop. Okay, it went on for generation after generation, for at least a century or two at full power. Okay, it didn't stop when he died. It didn't stop when his Messianic career was over, which was before he died, perhaps. I guess that's debatable. So tonight we're going to focus on the early career, and we're going to focus on the two main ideas of the Shabbetean movement. I'll tell you what they are already right now, and then we'll get back to them one by one as we go on tonight. The first, yes. Okay, the first idea is that it has to do with the Torah in the Messianic age. Okay, does the Torah apply? Is the Torah in force in the Messianic age? That's the first aspect of Shabbetean thought. And the second aspect of Shabbetean thought, these appear later on the key points sheet, is the power and even the obligation or the necessary aspect of sin, bringing the redemption through sin. Okay, those are the two things. You can see that they're connected, right? Because if you have this question mark in point A about does the Torah apply in the Messianic age, well, then if that's already a question mark, then maybe certain things in the Torah don't apply. Meaning maybe certain things which are considered sins, which are considered betrayals, which are considered awful deeds, maybe they become mandatory in the Messianic age. Okay? I'll use a word that'll be useful tonight. The word is antinomianism. I think we've used the word a little bit in the past, but I'll repeat it again because it's going to come up a lot. Okay? Antinomian means to go against that which was not just accepted, but that which was in force. Okay, laws that are in force. To be antinomian means to cast doubt upon the obligatory nature of the law. It would be antinomian, for instance, to say that here tonight, I no longer obey the laws of the state of Israel. That would be antinomian. You could also have antinomian in the Jewish tradition. It would be antinomian in the Jewish tradition to say, well, for generations and generations, hundreds or thousands of years, Jews kept Shabbat. Well, Jews don't have to keep Shabbat anymore. That would be an antinomian statement. It's a statement against the norm, against that which has been accepted until now. All right? And now. Okay. Now, Shabbetai Zvi's life. Shabbetai Zvi's life is not just important because it's interesting, and it's not just important because it affected history. It's also important because his very life, the things that actually happened to Shabbetai Zvi, are the cornerstone of Shabbeteanism. In other words, the followers of Shabbetai Zvi, both during his lifetime and after his lifetime, what they believed in was connected to his experiences in life. To give you a metaphor for this, Christianity, okay? Much of classical Christianity is built upon the life and career and experiences of Jesus. Okay, it's not just that he did those things and, you know, and then there's a religion based upon it. It's that the things that he did, the very things that he did, are important for Christians. Okay, the way they live their lives is based upon the things that he did and experienced and went through. So too, in a very different manner, of course, it's only a general comparison, in a very different manner for Shabbetai Zvi. His very life determines what his followers believe. He was born in 1626 in Izmir. Okay? Izmir, I-Z-M-I-R. And what's happening here is that you're a century after the beginning of the Lurianic Kabbalah. I think it was Jennifer who asked this last week, right? Lurianic Kabbalah has now had a century to settle in and spread and become the foremost form of Jewish thought around the Jewish world from one end to the other. Last week we mentioned from Yemen all the way to Poland and Lithuania and Ukraine, okay? Vast lands, Persia, Kurdistan, Jews all over the world, right? Not all of them, but it's the most central way to think about the Torah, is to think about it in terms of Lurianic Kabbalah, the light and the shattering of the vessels, and that when you do a mitzvah, it's a tikkun. And even if you're not a great scholar, and even if you're not a Kabbalistic scholar, even if you're a simple Jew, this idea can affect you, that every time I do a mitzvah, I'm bringing the Messiah a little bit closer. That was already before Shabbetai Zvi. That settled in for a century, and Shabbetai Zvi is born. He was born on Shabbat. That's why his parents called him Shabbetai. Okay? His father was a wealthy merchant. He grew up in good circumstances. He got a good education. He was a learned Jew. As I mentioned last week, he wasn't much of a Lurianic Kabbalist. He seems to have favored older forms of Kabbalah in his own personal study, the Sfirot, the Zohar. Okay? And he's born in 26, and in 48, meaning when he's 22 years old, in 1648, he has a revelation that he is the Messiah. He is going to redeem the Jews, bring them to the land of Israel, rebuild the temple, etc. Okay? At that time, he also begins doing strange actions. Okay? Masim Zarim. He begins doing strange actions that have to do with his moods. Okay? The great scholar of Kabbalah and also the great scholar of Shabbetai Zvi himself was Gershom Shalom. And Gershom Shalom, he has, by the way, if anybody's interested in reading it, he has a massive 2-volume work on Shabbetai Zvi, on the history of Shabbetai Zvi and the Sabbatean movement. I read this about 25 years ago, and I really felt bad. For all of the classes we've been having, I told you that I've been lacking resources. I don't own the 2-volume set on Shabbetai Zvi. The libraries are all closed. The truth is the library at Oranim opened again today. And if I'd been able to go today, maybe I could have seen the 2-volume work. But it's a fantastic work. It exists in English for those who want to read it in English. It's more than worth reading. Gershom Shalom spends a lot of time describing and analyzing and perhaps trying to even give a diagnosis for the personality of Shabbetai Zvi. And Shalom considers Shabbetai Zvi to be what was called until recently a manic depressive. In Hebrew, mania depressia. Okay? He's I can't see what you're holding, but just tell me, Esther. Esther, just tell me. What? Esther has a reference to the book. It's not going to help. What you could do is, Esther, you could send a link to WhatsApp. That would help. Okay? Esther will send a link to WhatsApp to the book. If all of you are going to run out to Book Depository or something and order the book. So that's the book. But in the book, he spends a lot of time talking about Shabbetai Zvi as a manic depressive. I think nowadays it's called bipolar. Okay? And it's worth reading. The book. In terms of my sources, by the way, I should also mention Moshe Halbertal. Moshe Halbertal is not only a fantastic scholar of Jewish thought, he's also a great teacher of Jewish thought. And for my lack of books, all the books that I wanted to use for this course and didn't have access to, so at least for the stuff that has to do with Jewish mysticism, meaning Avraham Abulafia, and this guy, Shabbetai Zvi, and the Kabbalah that goes with it, I've been using classes by Moshe Halbertal, which are in Hebrew, okay? And they help me a lot to organize the ideas, okay? But had I had the book, that's what I would have been reading for the past month. Okay, so he's a manic depressive, apparently. And when he's in his euphoric stages, when he's like, wow, I'm the king of the world and I can do anything, well, he really did anything. He would start doing crazy things. Now, when we think about crazy things, we have to put ourselves into the context. This was a traditional world, and the Jews were traditional Jews. So to do things which went against their tradition was considered crazy. We're going to see a lot of crazy things that Shabbetai Zvi did tonight. Tonight we'll see them. And many of you will not think that they're crazy at all. Okay? And yet, for his time and in the world that he lived in, they were crazy. The first thing that he began to do after his revelation as the Messiah in 1648, which probably doesn't appeal to people all that much nowadays, is he began pronouncing the divine name of God. The four-letter name, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, not to pronounce it as Adonai, the way we pronounce it, the way it's traditionally pronounced outside the temple, but rather as it is spelled. It is not meant to be pronounced that way, but there are sources that say that when the Messiah comes, Jews will once again call God by that name and pronounce that name. So Shabbetai Zvi began to do it. Okay? I have for you here a text that was written by a follower of Shabbetai Zvi. It's in Hebrew, and I'll read it and translate it at the, as I read. And this is a first-hand description, meaning somebody who knew him, who even knew him well, somebody to whom Shabbetai Zvi told his stories. This was somebody who had a very close friendship with Shabbetai Zvi. You see that he's called Rabbi. There were a lot of rabbinic followers of Shabbetai Zvi, and as we go on, we'll talk more about that. To what extent did the rabbinic leadership follow Shabbetai Zvi? And let's see how a person who knew Shabbetai Zvi personally describes the man. He describes him a little bit later, okay? This was written in 1665, before the main events of the career of Shabbetai Zvi, just at the beginning. And he writes as follows. Kishavar mikan b'Aram Tzova. Aram Tzova is Halib, is Aleppo in Syria. That is where these two met in these travels of Shabbetai Zvi. Siper lanu Shabbetai Zvi. Shabbetai Zvi told us, Al inyanav shemishnat hazot, about his happenings, about what he's been through since the year Hazot. Hazot is just, if you play with the letters, it'll wind up being 1648 in the Jewish date. Nacha alav ruach Hashem. The Spirit of the Lord fell upon him. Bilechto laila echad chutz la'ir, rachok min hayishuv kishtei sha'ot. When he was in one of his moods, he would try to remove himself from other human beings, from society. So he would leave civilization, he would leave the settled area, the city or town, and he'd go far away from town, like a 2-hour hike, to really distance yourself from the town. Mufshat umitboded, and I'm not sure if this means that he would separate himself or if he would strip, but what it certainly means is that he would isolate himself. Ad sheshama kol Elohim medaber imo, until he heard the word of God speaking with him in 1648. What did God tell him? Ata Moshiach Yisrael. You are the Savior, the Redeemer of Israel. Mashiach ben David. You are the Messiah, son of David. Mashiach Elohei Yaakov. You are the Messiah of the God of Jacob. Ve'ata atid lig'ol et Yisrael. You are destined to redeem Israel. Lekabetza me'arba kanfot haaretz betochechi Yerushalayim. And you are going to gather Israel from the 4 corners of the world into Jerusalem. Uvechem me'ota sha'a nitlabesh beruach hakodesh. From that time on, from 1648 on, Shabbetai Zvi was clothed, so to speak, in the Holy Spirit, meaning God was with him and he heard the voice of God, at least at times. Uvehe'ara gdola, his way was lighted for him. He had insight. V'haya hogeh et Hashem ba'otiotav. Here we see that he began to pronounce the divine name in its 4 letters, Yod He, Vav He. He began calling God, speaking to God in God's real name. Ve'oseh ma'asim zarim, and he would do strange acts. Kfi ma shenir'a lo shekach ra'ui la'asot, as seemed to him to be fitting to do. Mipnei kama sibot v'tikunim asher hu haya mitaken. Because of certain reasons and certain tikkunim, you see the Kabbalistic word tikkunim that we talked about last week, that he would be mitaken, that he would fix the divine world, okay, through these strange actions. Let's begin to think about that a little bit. In Lurianic Kabbalah, you fix the world, the divine world and the material world, through actions, but through very specific actions. The actions are those of the mitzvot. It's the mitzvot that do it. The details, the practicality of the mitzvot. You have to do the mitzvot, and to do the mitzvot with the proper intention, litaken. Okay, and that's why I elaborated a lot last week that it's a hyper-conservative. Okay, not only do you keep doing the mitzvot, but you do them down to the tiniest detail in the best possible way with the best possible intention always. God forbid you never miss a mitzvah. God forbid you never do a sin, because that would wreck the tikkunim. Okay, that would harm the world. Shabbetai Zvi is doing tikkunim, but he's not doing Lurianic tikkunim. Instead of the Lurianic tikkunim, as you see here in the text, he's doing ma'asim zarim. He's doing strange actions. Strange actions meaning contrary to the mitzvot as they have been accepted by Jews up to the day of Shabbetai Zvi.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Ma'asim Zarim reminds me of Esh Zara that Nadav and Avihu offered.
Yep.
That's nice. Okay. You know, it's not, this here is a supporter who's using the words Ma'asim Zarim. And if it's a supporter, then you can see how widespread the use of the phrase was. But it's certainly his detractors who are saying Ma'asim Zarim, and maybe they mean it in the sense that you bring it up. If Esh Zara, the alien fire, you know, it's not just the alien fire, it's also Avodah Zara, right? Foreign worship.
Yes.
Idolatry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So a phrase like that could have served a purpose for the detractors and the enemies of Shabbetai Zvi, that you are, you know, you're doing things which the Torah condemns. Jennifer has a question.
Are there any examples of these strange actions?
So far, we've only seen one, and that's pronouncing the divine name. But we're going to have more. Don't worry. Tonight we're gonna have a bunch of strange actions. Okay, that's only the beginning. V'haroim, meaning those who saw him. We're in a traditional society, and people are looking at this guy who's doing these strange things. Lo hayu mivinim. It should not lo hayu mivinim. No. Right? Lo hayu mivinim in yanav v'haya beinehem k'meta'ateya. Those who beheld him could not make any sense of his actions, and to them he seemed to be crazy or foolish or strange. V'chama pe'amim laka aleihem mirabotenu shebe'eretz Yisrael. He came to the land of Israel in his travels, and apparently the rabbis of the land of Israel even had him punished, right? This is a traditional society. You can punish people for acting in untraditional ways. For the evil of his ways, which was very distant from intelligence or perhaps from common sense, Ad shaya mukhrach lifrosh mi bnei adam, to the extent that he needed to separate himself from other people. El hamidbarot, he would go out into the wilderness and he would do his strange things in the wilderness, because when people saw him, they just couldn't take it. Okay. Uvechol pam. Shaya mitra'eh, haya gadel v'olech u'mitrabeh v'ro'eh. Okay? Whenever he would apparently have these prophecies, it would get bigger and stronger and more powerful. Mitrabeh v'ro'eh. Ma she'en hapeh yechola lidaber. And words cannot describe. Apparently Shabbetai Zvi said this. That words cannot describe the visions that I lived through, and that's in his euphoric states. But this is a vilifamim, and sometimes it's a v as a negative. It's but sometimes hayamitz ta'er tsa'ar gadol. Sometimes he would find himself in great suffering, in great pain. And sometimes he would enjoy the light of the presence of God. Meaning sometimes he would find himself in darkness and in pain. Sometimes he would find himself in the light of God in euphoria. Sometimes he was up and sometimes he was down. Sometimes he was manic and sometimes he was depressive, in the words of Gershom Shalom. Lefamim Hashem nisahu b'nisyonot gidolim kashim mimavet. Sometimes God tried him, right? God gave him a test that was harder than death itself. Ve'amad b'chulam. His suffering, apparently in his depressive states, was so great, was so powerful, so acute, that he felt that it was more powerful, or it hurt more than death. And yet, he told his followers, he tells this Rabbi Laniado, I came through them all, I survived them all, I stood for all of God's tests. Okay. Now, these ups and downs, okay, this is like a pendulum which is swinging wildly, okay, from side to side. And his followers took these things very, very seriously, okay? I don't want to describe it yet in detail, but they're going to see Shabbetai Zvi's ups and downs as connected to the very redemption of the world. Now, from Izmir, he went to Saloniki. And in Saloniki, how do you say Saloniki in English? Salonika, right?
Salonika.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. So in there, he does more scandalous things. And one of these scandalous things that he did in Salonika, you're not going to believe this one, is he got married. And you might ask, well, what's so scandalous about getting married? Traditional Jews got married. It's not meant to be such a scandal. The scandal was in his mate, his spouse. His spouse was a Torah scroll. He held a wedding for himself and a Torah scroll. He married a Torah scroll. You know, we speak about loving the Torah. Well, this is really loving the Torah. You get married to the Torah. Shabbetai Zvi, by the way, was married several times. We're not going to talk about his actual human wives tonight, okay? But one of them was quite unique, and we'll get to her to next week when we do the very end of his career, because she was apparently influential and important at the very end of his career. Tonight, we're going to do a wife who is not of flesh and blood, and who has an actual skit from The Jews Are Coming. Okay? And this, I told you there'd be one more skit, so here's the second skit. He says, honey, have you seen my slippers? Okay? But he says, Naleh Shabbat. He says his Sabbath slippers. In the 17th century, Shabbetai Zvi gets to Salonika and announces that he's the Messiah. And the whole community is mad at him for marrying a Torah scroll. Why are you like this today? He says to her. Sure. Come with us. Come. We're throwing you out of Salonika. What happened? Don't listen to the lies that people tell about me. People make up awful things about me just to besmirch my name. It's crazy. Like you married a Sefer Torah? That's actually true. So the other guy says, you awful person. You're desecrating the holy. It's the Torah, you can't marry. It's not written anywhere, but you just can't do it. Would you marry your umbrella? Yes. He says, my umbrella's mother couldn't stand me. We don't want people like you in our community. Out. No. What? You want to say goodbye to your broom? Do you ever kiss the Torah? Of course. Do you dance with her? On Simchat Torah, a mitzvah. Do you think about the Torah? Are you mesmerized by the Torah day and night? So you don't love the Torah? Of course we love the Torah. I'll die for the Torah. I love the Torah more than my wife. I hate my wife, but you kiss her, you dance with her, you fantasize about her. That's okay, but to marry her, you can't. Yeah, you just pray and throw away. If it's a crime to love the Torah, then I'm a criminal. The criminal of love. Come, sweetie, let's go. We're not wanted here. You know, she has girlfriends. Shabtai tells me they're sending you to Yemenite synagogue. He says, it's not working out. Would you mind if I flirted with your umbrella? Come here, come here. Okay, that's all. All right, now let's get back to Salonika. Now let's be a little more serious. He marries a Sefer Torah. He marries a Sefer Torah. He's expelled from Salonika, and he comes to what the Jews called Kushta, which is Constantinople, and also to Israel. Okay? Now, Sabbatean thought, the ideas behind this Messiah, they derive less from the Messiah himself than they do from his main ideological supporters. When we saw the first skit, we saw Nathan of Aza, the prophet of Shabbetai Zvi. It was men like him. There was also a Rabbi Abraham Cordozo, who was a descendant of Marranos, of Spanish Jews who kept their Judaism in a secret. These two men and some others, but the main one was Nathan of Aza. These were the people who created the ideas of the Shabbetean movement. Now, they didn't create it from nothing. First of all, they connected all of their ideas to the actual life of Shabbetai Zvi in ways that perhaps Shabbetai Zvi wouldn't have done himself, wouldn't have created enough to do it himself. These were very creative thinkers. When we read about this movement today, it sounds like they were all, I don't know, insane or something. No. Okay, these were very creative and very brilliant people. Nathan of Gaza was a very fine Torah scholar and a true scholar of Kabbalah, at least in the sense of knowing the ideas. And he took things in a creative, new direction. They took this Shabbetai Zvi, who was going from place to place and getting expelled from Salonika. He was making an impression on people, but not a very successful impression on people. They took him, especially Nathan of Aza, took him and turned him into the Messiah of Israel. Nathan of Gaza was born in Jerusalem. Before he met Shabbetai Zvi, he was known to be the kind of mystic who could see the Shorshei HaNeshama, the roots of people's souls. Okay, he could tell, like, you know, where your soul derives from in the realm of the Sfirot. And this would allow him to cure you. If you were sick, or if you were facing some sort of problem, some sort of obstacle, he was known as the man who could cure you. And we have people like this today, okay? And it's not some kind of just crazy thing, okay? Apparently, he was thought to have these powers. He must have had a certain amount of skill working with people. And the way he met Shabbetai Zvi was in his capacitor as a healer. Shabbetai Zvi realized that he was sick. Shabbetai Zvi, he was going through this, these manic depressive experiences, and they hurt him so much, and the pain was worse than death. And he heard of this Natan of Aza, who could cure people who were sick. He wanted to be cured of this. So he comes to him to be healed from his manic depression and from these compulsive acts, these antinomian acts, which apparently he didn't just do because he wanted to. Apparently he did them because he felt compelled to do them. He had no choice. Okay, he had no control over himself. There was just one little problem for Shabbetai Zvi and ultimately for the rest of the Jewish world. Okay? You can imagine the problem like this. I heard recently that there's either a wing of some hospital in Jerusalem, or at least, I don't know, practitioners who are proficient in treating people with Jerusalem syndrome. I bet most of you have heard of Jerusalem syndrome. There's the syndrome that only exists in Jerusalem. People go to Jerusalem and they become prophets and they become messiahs and they become redeemers. They become Jesus reborn. They become the king of the Jews, whatever, right? You have these people who Jerusalem just brings out the crazy in them, okay? Well, I can't hear. You almost had it. Okay. Here we're saying that certain people at Midreshet Hakerem have been touched or almost touched by this business. All right. I didn't think that Midreshet Hakerem would be quite the center for this, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. In any case, I'm sorry. In any case, imagine if you were almost touched by Jerusalem syndrome and you said to yourself, I've got to get help, okay? And you make an appointment for a psychiatrist and you sit with the psychiatrist and you say, doctor, help me. I'm having these visions that I'm the Messiah and I know it's crazy and I know it can't be, and could you make me into a normal person again? And the psychiatrist says, no, that's not what we're gonna do. You really are the Messiah. Okay, that in a sense is what happened to Shabbetai Zvi. He goes to Natan of Aza to be cured of his manic depression and of his messianic euphoria. Okay, and the problem was that Natan of Aza, he had his own prophecies. In his prophecies, God shows him the Redeemer. And guess what? The Redeemer came knocking at his door. And Shabbetai Zvi fit the bill for all the things in his own prophecy that identified the Messiah. Okay? So that is how the big historical earthquake got started. Jennifer is suggesting that the psychiatrist was as sick as his patient. I don't know. But let's put it this way, the psychiatrist was more talented than his patient. Okay? And this talented psychiatrist said to the patient, what you are living through, your manic depressive bouts, they're not a disease to be gotten rid of. Rather, they are part of the process of redemption itself. Redemption is not a smooth highway. Redemption is a process with its ups and its downs, and that is what you are living through because you are the Redeemer. The Redeemer needs to go through all of these difficult swings. Okay. We're about to look now at another text, a text by none other than Natan Ha'azati, the prophet Nathan of Gaza. In one of his books about Sabbateanism, one of the cornerstones of Sabbateanism, called Drush HaTaninim. Tanin can be used as a term for a serpent, okay? This is the sermon of the serpents. And here is how he describes the manic depressive bouts of Shabbetai Zvi. He writes, Shabbetai Zvi HaMashiach, Omed Birum HaMa'alot. Sometimes he is at the highest level, at the top. Ufam B'tachlit Hadalut V'hashiflut. And sometimes he is at the bottom of the pit. Hevio HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'nisyonot Gdolim. The Holy One, blessed be He, put Shabbetai Zvi through great trials. Kama pa'amim, quite a few times. Achar shaya omed berum shamayim. Even though at the beginning he was up at the top of the heavens, haya nofel le'umka detahoma rabba. He would fall to the depths of the greatest depth. Can't think of a better way to translate that without being redundant. Okay? He would fall from the greatest heights to the deepest depths. V'hayu mifatim oto hanichashim. The serpents, they would tempt him. When he fell down into the pit, the serpents would tempt him. It recalls perhaps Joseph is thrown into the pits. V'habor rek en bomayim. The pit is empty. Joseph's pit was empty. There was no water in it. And the rabbis, Chazal, say that mayim, water wasn't in the pit, but serpents were. Right? The brothers threw him into a pit that was a dangerous pit. So Shabbetai Zvi's pit, like Joseph's pit, it was also a dangerous pit. There would be these serpents in the pit. But what are the serpents? The serpents would say to him, Lomar lo, Aye Elohecha, where is your God? You are now in the deepest darkness, in the deepest depth. Where do you see God? God has abandoned you to this doom. Virayot Gidolot, and the serpents would prove this to Shabbetai Zvi. They would be very convincing. B'derech she'en hasechel ha'ma'asi yachol lesovlo. In a way that, the mind cannot bear. Okay? So who are these serpents? These serpents are representations of demons. He would be cast into the demonic depths, and it would look like there's no way out, and the demons would convince him that there was no way out. And yet, Shabbetai Zvi would always be able to redeem himself. He would always eventually, he would leave the pits. Okay? So this is how Natan Ha'azati describes the personality of Shabbetai Zvi. Right? It's not a disease. What it is tests from God, trials that the Messiah must get through successfully. They begin a journey together. They go to Safed, the home of Luri and Kabbalah. Aleppo, he goes back to Izmir, where he was born. Okay? And he returns there in 1665. We're now at the beginning of the end of his career. That's where we're stopping tonight, at least in terms of the history, the beginning of the end of the career, with a whole company of followers. This time, it's not just this crazy man who they kick out. right? He comes back with all these people who now think he's the Messiah. And in the beginning, there's riots and probably fist fights, okay? Because he doesn't just come with his followers. He begins doing strange actions. And I'm going to give you now an example of some of the strange public actions that Shabbetai Zvi did when he returned to Izmir. He goes to the synagogue. In the synagogue, we read the Torah. But he didn't read the Torah in a traditional way. First of all, he didn't use an actual Torah scroll. He used a text which is not considered kosher under traditional halakha. And that text, there's someone to be let in, perhaps by Don, I guess. That text was a printed Bible. He read the Torah from the printed Bible, which of course all of you know is easier to do. But the worst, and I'm sorry to say this, especially given the context where we are sitting, those of us in Midreshet Hakerem, is that he called women to read. He called women to read from the Torah. Okay, I hope still tonight we'll get to some of Shabbetai Zvi's comments on women, and we'll see that he saw himself not just as the redeemer of the world, but as the redeemer of womankind. Okay, and he called women to the Torah. I hope Marion is here to hear this.
I am. I just came.
Okay. I don't know if there's any other Torah readers here from Midreshet Hakerem. So he read from a printed Bible and called women to the Torah, and this caused a whole ruckus in the community. And yet, in the end, the community came over to his side. He became the Messiah of Izmir. Now, this is 1665. Many of you may, even if you don't know a lot about the story of Shabbetai Zvi, it's very easy to remember the main year in the civil counting of the career of Shabbetai Zvi, because the main year was the year 1666. 1666 aroused all kinds of, apocalyptic ideas among Christians. I'm talking about the Christian year, 1666. And that was also the year of Shabbetai Zvi. What we're not doing tonight is 1666 on, but we're still in 1665. Okay, we're still okay. In 1665 and then in 1666, he's going to meet the Sultan. Okay, and the idea is that the Sultan is like the king of the world, and he's going to take the Sultan's crown, and he's going to become himself the king of the world and the redeemer of the Jews. And again, it's not a secret what actually happens. Okay, I can tell you, even though we'll do it more next week. The Sultan says, "Great, if that's what you say, then either you're the king of the Jews, with his head cut off, okay, or you become a Muslim." Okay, and that's how the Messianic Jewish career somewhat comes to an end. We'll see that it's not. We'll see that it's not that simple. Okay, because I want to save the repercussions of all of this for next week. Okay, but we're up to the point where his fame has spread to the entire Jewish world. Okay. Most Jews in the world and most countries supported Shabbetai Zvi and believed he was the Messiah. To put it in very general terms, even great rabbis. Okay, there were rabbinic opponents of Shabbetai Zvi, but there were also great rabbis. Okay, if you go to traditional yeshiva library today, and you open up the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch, you'll find commentaries on them that were written by rabbis who, with the sincerest of intentions, they thought and they hoped that Shabbetai Zvi would be the Messiah. When he became a Muslim, they dropped it. Okay, but they entertained the possibility that yes, this is the Messiah, the Taz, the Bach, the Beit Chadash HaMatur. The author of these commentaries were what we would call moderate Sabbateans. Moderate Sabbateans are Sabbateans who think yes, this may be the Messiah, or maybe even this is the Messiah, and yet his strange actions, those strange actions are actions of the Messiah. They're not for everybody. We keep the mitzvot and we follow the halacha, and the Messiah can do what the Messiah can do. This actually reminds me of a story, a true story, that years ago, it was Shabbat. I was home with my parents for Shabbat. And on Shabbat afternoon, my father tells me, let's go to Mincha, to the Shabbat afternoon prayer. So I said, fine. Okay, so which synagogue should we go to? And he said, let's go to Chabad. And I said, Dad, I don't think we should go to Chabad because it's well known about Hasidim, and especially Lubavitcher Hasidim, that they're always late. You're supposed to daven Mincha before sunset. And for Hasidim, it often happens after sunset. This is just a thing that Hasidim have. It's always late. So my father said, what are you talking about? The Lubavitchers, they're very religious people. They wouldn't say Mincha after sunset. Okay, so I went with my father to the Chabad house. And lo and behold, Mincha really was before sunset. So I said to the rabbi of the Chabad house, the Chabadnik, I said, you daven Mincha on time, and I always expect Lubavitchers to do things late. So you know what the Chabadnik told me? He said, the Rebbe in 770 in New York, he can daven Mincha when he wants to. But here in my Chabad house, we do it according to the halacha. Okay? And that's a little bit similar to what a moderate Sabbatean would say. The moderate Sabbatean would say that Shabbetai Zvi can do whatever he does because he's the Messiah. But we are normative, traditional Jews, right? And we keep following the mitzvot just like the mitzvot have always been followed. Okay? So many rabbis around the world thought that he was the Messiah. And then then they became disillusioned and they realized that it was not the case. There was great disappointment in the Jewish world, which we'll get to more last week. But imagine the euphoric moment when most of the Jewish world believes that the Messiah has come and the Messiah is about to demand the Sultan's crown. And we're all going to be redeemed and we're all going to return to the land of Israel. Okay? What a moment. If Shabbetai Zvi had his manic depressive moments from the highest top to the deepest depths, right? Imagine the Jewish world at this moment, and then all of a sudden, it crashes. Okay, that'll be the topic for next week. For this week, what we'll continue with are the ideas, okay? How did Shabbetai Zvi's manic depressive personality get interpreted? Does the Torah apply in the age of the Messiah? And can it be a mitzvah to sin? Okay. So these are the two main features of Sabbatean thought. A, Messianism versus traditional law. And B, a radical new conception of sin. Okay? Now, A has something to do with previous Jewish thought. It's not a completely new idea. B is a radical departure from previous Jewish thought. So we'll go min hakal el hakaved. We'll go from the the lighter step to the heavier step. The lighter step being Messianism versus law, and B, the radical new conception of sin. Now, when the Messiah comes, will the Torah still be in force? We've talked about this before, probably in more than one context. In this course, it already came up with the Messiah in Yemen. Remember the Messiah in Yemen who Maimonides wrote about? Okay. One of the things that Maimonides emphasizes and repeats and stresses is that nothing changes in the era of the Messiah. Number one, nature doesn't change. There's no miracles. The world remains as it has been, and human beings remain human beings as they have been. Number two, the Torah doesn't expire. Okay, the mitzvot that were in force until the Messiah are also still in force with the Messiah. It's not like a carton of milk that after 2 weeks you have to throw it out. Okay, the date comes, the Messiah arrives, not like that. Okay, the mitzvot of the Torah, the Rambam emphasizes, are forever. And indeed, the role of the Messiah, stresses Maimonides, will be to enforce the Torah and also to make the Torah doable. There are so many reasons in our non-redeemed world why we cannot do mitzvot. The Messiah will usher in an age where we'll be able to do all of the mitzvot. We build the temple even so that we can do all of the mitzvot. Okay, so Maimonides' concept of the Messiah is a Messiah who is completely within the bounds of traditional Jewish strictures. But it's not by accident that he's saying that. Well, when it comes to the Messiah in Yemen, he's saying, you think this guy is the Messiah? He's not even a scholar, not even a Torah scholar, certainly not a philosopher, okay? And he's also doing things which are antinomian, which go against the tradition. That is the opposite of what the Messiah will do, claims Maimonides in his letter to Yemen, in his epistle to Yemen. And that's why he emphasizes this so much. Now, Maimonides lived before the Zohar. Maimonides, at least before it was proclaimed to the world. Maimonides lived before Lurianic Kabbalah, and Maimonides certainly lived before Shabbetai Zvi. So what was Maimonides reacting to? Were there Jews who thought that the Messiah would rewrite the Torah? That the Torah would change in the age of the Messiah? And it turns out that there are traditional Jewish ideas that do say this. And these are the ideas that Maimonides was apparently trying to minimize or to negate. Here's a midrash. Amar Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, said, Torah me'iti tetzeh. A verse from Isaiah which means the Torah will go forth from me, capital M, God. Right? God says the Torah will go forth from me. And the Midrash interprets this as Chidush Torah me'iti tetzeh. A renewed Torah will go out from me. Keep in mind that this is a verse from Isaiah 51. The last part of the book of Isaiah, from chapter 40 on, are prophecies of redemption. Okay, it's what scholars call second Isaiah. And
Supposedly a prediction that Jesus will be the new Messiah.
what Jennifer's saying, I wanted to leave that for the end. Okay, so it's okay. Jennifer mentioned something about Christianity. we're going to clinch this whole point with that. So hold your horses, okay? So the Midrash says, a renewed Torah will go forth from me when the redemption comes. In other words, the Torah of redemption, of the age of redemption, will not be the same Torah. Rabbi Berechia Mishum Rabbi Yitzchak. Ariston gadol atid HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'asot la'avadav. Tzadikim la'atid lavo. A great feast has the Holy One, blessed be He, put aside for His servants, for the righteous in the time to come. Get this, you're going to love this. V'chol mi shelo achal nevelot utrefot ba'olam hazeh. Anyone who didn't consume impure meat, meaning non-kosher meat, animals that died or had a sickness or something, but meat the Jews are not allowed to eat. Anyone who didn't eat non-kosher meat in this world, zochel echol la'olam haba, will get to eat non-kosher meat in the next world. Let's see the end of the Midrash. This is what is written in Leviticus, in a verse in Leviticus which talks about, non-kosher meat. Chelev nevela, the chelev is the fatty part which was burnt upon the altar. But if the fatty part comes from an animal that would not be kosher to consume, that died or was diseased, you can use it for your works, meaning you could maybe burn that fat to light a candle, okay? Not consume it. You may not eat it. What does the Midrash say? Why may you not eat it? Why must you not eat it? Bishvil shetochlu mimenu la'ativ lavo. You have to save it. You have to defer the pleasure. Okay? You might have liked to consume this non-kosher chelev in this world. Don't. Put it aside. Don't eat it so that you'll be able to consume it in the next world. In other words,
why would anyone want to eat roadkill or meat that's from a diseased animal?
The issue is not roadkill. I mean, it's interesting why it doesn't have, camel meat or donkey meat or pig meat or something here. Okay, to me at least, so probably that would have been an example closer to what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Right. But that's not the point of the Midrash. The point of the Midrash is that which is forbidden in this world becomes permitted. And I think it will make more sense to you if you allow yourself to expand it. Okay? Maybe it's not just meat. Maybe it's all the forbidden acts, things you could have acted upon in this world, in this life, and you wanted to. And you restrained yourself for the sake of God, for the sake of the Torah. Your reward is that you'll be able to indulge in all of it in the world to come. Now, does this Midrash reflect the mainstream rabbinic view about the world to come? Maybe not. There are others, okay? But this is a mainstream Midrash. This is Vayikra Rabbah. It's one of the oldest land of Israel Midrashim, okay? It may not be the mainstream idea, but it is certainly a mainstream idea. It is a legitimate mainstream way to talk about the world to come. May not be the only one, may not be the main one, but it is within the consensus of the Jewish tradition. Okay, it reminds me of recently I saw somebody who posted on Facebook something about like Islam versus Jews and Christians. And this person writes how for Muslims, there's such a dwelling on the world to come, because in the world to come, you get to do all the stuff that Islam says you can't do in this world. Okay, now this person wrote it as a generalization, and I don't even know, okay, whether it's a valid generalization or not. I won't broach an opinion because I really don't know. But what I can say is that the idea does occur, okay, in Midrashic thought. Okay, in Midrashic thought, you do find this idea. If in Islam it's 70 to 72 virgins, okay, so here you do have at least the seed of the idea that whatever you refrain from in this world, you are able to indulge in the next world. Now let's think what happens, just for a second before I go on to the next text. What happens if the next world arrives? Okay, the next world arrives. Don't think of the next world as the soul going to heaven or something like that after one passes away. No. The next world, the plain meaning of it in rabbinic texts, is the world of redemption. So if the Messiah arrives to redeem the world, maybe all of these indulgences are about to happen. Okay, other ideas. This isn't actually a quote, it's about a quote, but in the Tractate Midah of the Babylonian Talmud, there's a question about a dead body. A dead body needs to have tachrichim. It needs to have a garment, a certain kind of garment that the dead body is buried in. And the Talmud says that it's permitted for the garment to be kilayim, to be shatnez. For those who don't know, it's forbidden to have a garment that's a mixture, a woven mixture of wool and linen together. Okay? Well, a living person is forbidden, obviously. What about a dead person? And the Talmud in Masechet Nidah says that it's permitted to bury someone in kilayim because the person is not alive. Okay? And then one of the explanations in the Gemara is that mitzvot b'telot le'atid lavo, that the mitzvot are canceled. They expire. They have an expiry date. When the redemption comes, the mitzvot expire. What does that mean? This person is being buried in a forbidden garment. A living person is not allowed to wear this garment. But what about the resurrection of the dead? When this person is resurrected, he or she will be wearing a forbidden garment. So how can you bury the person in the garment? Answer is, mitzvot b'telot la'atid lavo. The mitzvot are canceled in the next world, in the world to come. There will be no prohibition to wear a woven mixture of wool and linen in the world to come. Okay? And finally, to get to things that we did very recently, we saw the Ramban, right? 13th century Kabbalah, Nachmanides. Well, the Ramban says, there's a verse, Umal Hashem et orlat livavchem. God will circumcise the foreskin of your heart. That's what the verse says. Le'atid lavo tiyeh milat halev. In the future, in the next world, in the world to come, God will circumcise the hearts of humanity. Meaning human beings in the world to come will no longer be tempted by sin, will no longer even really have choice, okay, as to their actions. Human beings will be creatures who do what is right, creatures who do the will of God. There will be no free will in the next world. In Ecclesiastes, you have Ein Baim Chefetz, the days which one does not desire. You may be referring to an old age, but Ein Baim Chefetz can also be thought of as there is no will in them, there is no volition. The Messianic age is an age when there is no volition. And now think about this. This is really, really cool. Okay, this whole thing makes perfect sense. And the sense that it makes is this. The reason we need law is because people are not perfect. And because the world is not perfect. But if the world became perfect and people became perfect, there will be no reason for laws. So it makes sense that there's no place for law in a redeemed world. There's no place for law in the world to come. Okay? Now is the time to bring in Christianity. Okay? Christianity is built upon the idea that there's a new covenant which replaces a previous covenant, that the law changes. And in Christianity, it's the Messiah himself who brings the new covenant, which replaces the old covenant. So if you're going to oppose all this stuff like Maimonides did, it's also anti-Christological. Okay, it's also saying that the law never changes. Okay, whereas if you develop these ideas that are found in the tradition of, laws being bygone, when the Messiah arrives and all of that, okay, then you're giving a pitchon peh, you're giving an opening, right, for Christological claims. Okay. Now, so is this a new idea or an old idea? It's both old and new. It's old in the way that you saw, that you do have the idea that in redemption, the Torah will change. My favorite example, which people almost never cite for some reason, is in the Passover Haggadah. The Passover Haggadah contains a debate about whether the commandment to remember the Exodus from Egypt will apply in the Messianic age. If the Messianic redemption overshadows the Exodus from Egypt, then there's no reason to mention it anymore. Now, if you want to mention God's redemption, you'll mention the Messianic redemption. And that is also the expiry of a mitzvah. Okay, so the idea does exist. And yet, the Kabbalah did change this. Okay, especially the Lurianic Kabbalah. We saw that the Torah is this living, breathing being. It's like the face of God. And just like people change their expressions, from moment to moment, the Torah too, it changes its expression. It's still the same person, so to speak. But God, it's the face of God, it's the expression of God. God changes expressions, okay? Or like the Ramban, we had the Ramban, Nachmanides, that the Torah, the letters are fixed, but you can cut them in different ways into different words, okay? And in one generation, you may cut it into different words than another generation. What the Sabbateans said is, yeah, and now we've arrived. Now is the time to cut the Torah into different words. Now is the time where God has a totally different expression. It wants totally different things. Okay? The moment has arrived, for instance, okay, Shabbetai Zvi being the redeemer of woman. Okay? God, in a certain mood, decided that woman would be in a certain position. God, in a different mood, wants woman to have a different position in society. Okay? And now we'll see an example of that. You can see the text on the screen. Save that too. I told Jennifer earlier to save Christianity. Now I'm asking her to save Reformed Judaism. Hold your horses on it, okay? Okay. Here is a recording in writing of Shabbetai Zvi speaking to women or of women. Ve'aten nashim aluvot, you poor woman. Ma umlalotaten, you are so oppressed. Ki biglal Chava, because of Eve, because of the curse of Eve. Kol mirubim machovechen be'et laidatchen. Because of her and her curse, you suffer so much in childbirth. Ugdola mizo, and worse than that. Mishuabadotaten leva'alechen. You are subservient to your husbands. Right? The verse there says, first it talks about pregnancy and giving birth, they are painful. And then it says, Ve'el ishech teshukatech, v'hu yimshol bach, that the woman will be tied to the man and subservient to the man. V'lo tuchlu la'asot ktana u'gdola b'li haskamatam. You can do no small or large thing without the agreement, without the permission of your husbands. Ve'od kahena ve'kahena, and other similar things he would say to the woman. Achodu le'Elohim, but give praise to God, O woman. Shebati lo'olam ligol etchem, that I have come to the world to redeem you. Mikol yisurechen, from all of your womanly sufferings. Ulishacharer etchen, to free you. V'la'asotchen me'usharot kibo ba'alechen, and to make you happy just like your husbands. Kibati lema'an batel et chet'o shel Adam harishon, for I have come to cancel the sin of Adam and Eve. Okay? And I'll just mention this, that in the wake of Moshe Halbertal, that Ada Rappaport is a scholar of Kabbalah and of the Shabbetai movement, and she's written, including books, about the feminine side of the Shabbetai movement, if it interests anyone. Okay, according to Shabbetai Zvi, this is part. According to Ada Rappaport, this is part of the great tikkun, the great final step of Lurianic Kabbalah that will bring the redemption. Right, every act brings us closer, but the great act that will bring the final redemption, part of it is the redemption of woman. Okay. And now let's think about the Torah. The Torah is the face of God. In Eden, God didn't want that. That's the curse after Eden, when they're kicked out of Eden. In Eden, God didn't want woman to suffer, and God didn't want woman to be subservient. And God, as a matter of fact, didn't want any of the other commandments of the Torah, perhaps, or prohibitions of the Torah, with the exception of the one rule that was in the Garden of Eden, not to eat from the tree of good and evil, whatever that symbolizes, right, in the Lurianic Kabbalah. So Shabbetai Zvi is saying, there once was a different Torah in Eden. Then people, or Adam, right, he violated the prohibition, ate from the fruit, and because of that, God's face changed. And now there's a different kind of Torah with different kinds of rules, including for women. But that time is over now. I'm here. The Messiah is here. And God is bringing us back into the world of Eden. And that means that woman for one thing, can read from the Torah. Okay? Okay. So that is the first idea. When you show me these things I can't see, Esther, the best thing is to take the link and send it to the WhatsApp, okay? Well, what's it a link of? She's not saying. Okay. Thank you, Esther, for the links. Now, now we are going to the second point. The first point was the point that the Torah changes when the Messiah comes. And that has serious roots in the previous Jewish tradition. It changes, right? You know, now the Torah has got its face, the time has come, right? These are new developments of the idea, radical developments of the idea, but the idea was not completely new. The second idea is radically new. The second idea is that sin can be a mitzvah. This is not just not very present in traditional Jewish thought. It's also not very present in previous Kabbalistic thought. It's not to say that there's nothing, okay? There are here and there certain moments in the rabbinic tradition where you have the idea that even if you violated something, it can be good. Okay, here and there you have the idea. There's the famous quotation at the end of Tractate Brachot of Eit Lasot Lashem Heferu Toratecha. Okay, it's time to act for God. And they violated your Torah. That sometimes the violation of the Torah is the keeping of the Torah. Maybe saying the divine name at times will strengthen the Torah. That's the idea there. There's also an idea that appears in rabbinic literature of Avera Lishma, if you do a sin with good intention. Okay? Apparently what these morsels derive from is simply the understanding that law is always general. Law cannot cover every circumstance. Law is meant to encourage good behavior and encourage good society and encourage holiness and encourage worship of God in everything. And yet, law cannot cover every situation. And there may indeed be a situation where you did something which is technically wrong, and yet the result is good. Okay? You also have the idea, for instance, that prohibitions of the Torah can be suspended temporarily by a prophet. The example in the Talmud is Elijah on Mount Carmel. Because Elijah on Mount Carmel, the whole big test, right, where the prophets of Baal, they sacrifice, and Elijah sacrifices, and they want to see which one fire comes down from heaven, right? And Elijah pours water over his sacrifices, okay? And yet the fire from heaven consumes Elijah's sacrifices and not theirs, and it kills the prophets of Baal. So when the Talmud talks about that, the Talmud says, hey, how could Elijah do that? It's prohibited to bring an offering to God outside of the temple while the temple stands. So how could he bring an offering to God on Mount Carmel? And the answer is that a prophet has the ability to temporarily suspend a prohibition. It was necessary in order to confront the prophets of Baal to once, a single time, do a sacrifice on Mount Carmel. Okay. Now, the kernels of this idea, if you want to be Luriatic about it, sparks of this idea, okay, existed before Shabbetai Zvi and Natan of Asa. But what they do with it is like nothing that ever came before. Now, the prophet Nathan of Asa, the prophet of Shabbetai Zvi, developed the following idea, okay? You remember that God contracted himself in order to create a space that was not himself. He gifted the space that was not himself with divine lights, with the sphirot, like a syringe being put into a bubble. Okay, a shaft of light goes into the space. The vessel that holds these lights cannot contain them because they're divine lights. And the thing explodes. Okay, and these divine sparks, these parts of God, they're captured, they're caught, they're imprisoned within the shards of the vessel that contain them, which is in our world. Those shards are evil. Those shards, said Nathan of Aza, are the deep pits. They're the serpents in the deep pits. Okay, that the Messiah has to descend down to. Now think about why. In the Luriana Kabbalah, every mitzvah you do is one step closer to the Messiah. But now the Messiah has arrived. The Messiah is here on earth. And he has to bring the redemption now. This is the end of the process. The process doesn't go on forever, right? Not nice to use the phrase, it's a dead end. Okay, but it's a line segment. Okay, it's not an infinite line that goes on. It goes on forever. So Nathan of Aza says that the final steps to bring the redemption are the most difficult of all. God's face is changing. God wants different things from us now. In order to take this previous steps towards redemption, Jews had to keep the mitzvot, and each mitzvah with the right kavanah, the right intention, brought us a step closer to redemption. Now that we're here, now that redemption is right in front of us, the greatest tikkunim need to be made, the hardest tikkunim need to be made. And the Messiah, who should dwell in the world of light, is the Messiah after all, has to do this great tikkun. He has to be thrust down by God into the deepest, deepest depths and confront these serpents who guard the light. Now, what gives these serpents life? They're evil, they're darkness, they're the empty space which is not God. What gives them life? What gives them life is the sparks that they hold, that they imprison. So Shabbetai Zvi goes down to this pit, and he's confronted by these serpents, and he makes the serpents believe that they've captured him, and that they've imprisoned him too, and that he will never escape. And he has to do that because that's the only way to get to the sparks. And once he redeems those sparks that are in the depths of evil, then the serpents will die. They have no longer a spark to give them life. And then he will be able to rise up out of the pit, evil, and think about what this means. Okay, this means that acts of evil, acts that would be thought of traditionally as disobedience, as contrary to the commandments of the Torah, as antinomian, they become acts which are necessary to bring the Messiah. Acts of evil, acts of betrayal. Let's say the act that God needs in order to bring the Messiah is to betray the Jewish people, which is what Shabbetai Zvi did in the minds of most Jews. Okay? Maybe even that is a necessary aspect of bringing the final redemption. So let's see this in Natan HaAzati's, in Natan HaAzati's actual words. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I missed this text. It's a good text. Here's the text. Is relevant to us now. Next week, maybe I'll do the text above. It's a really, really cool text. I don't know how I forgot it. About it's a really cool text about whether the Torah is forever. Okay. Nimtzenu limedim, says Natana Azati. Shezeh bichlal sodot Hashem, velo isura klal. This is of the secrets of God, and it is not prohibited at all. You know what he's talking about? He's talking about Shabbetai Zvi's conversion to Islam.
Oh.
ומלך המשיח העולה על כולם, הוא צריך להיכנס בעומק יותר קשה כדי שיסתור בניינם. The Messianic king has to go into the greatest depths in order to destroy the buildings of evil. והטעם שידוע שעל ידי העוונות ונבנים רקיעים של שבתו. It is known that through sin are built fortresses of nothingness. Nothingness means because they don't have God. Ve'eino metukan, the sin is not fixed. Ad sheyistor kol otam harikiim, until all of it is destroyed. V'inyan astira, the way to destroy these fortresses of evil. Al yedei sheyamshich al yedei nishmato he'ara gdola v'yishberu v'yisrefu kol otam harikiim. And the only way to do it is for the Messiah to have this light, okay, and to go down and to destroy those buildings. V'tzarich she'yavo lidei ha'avon harishon asher nitbisa acharav. He needs to go after the first sin, maybe the greatest sin. V'choshev hasitra achra ki bevadai ya'asena. And the other side, meaning Satan, thinks that, now I ain't going to get the Messiah to sin. Now the Messiah is going to fall into my trap. But when he actually goes down to those depths, he separates himself from sin. Yaseh yichud gadol. He'll make a great unity. This is how you fix the sfirot. V'nimshechet ha'ara gidola. V'neharasim kol otam habinyanim. And this light is made, and these buildings of fortresses of evil are destroyed. Okay, the only way to destroy them is by descending down to them. You have to get to them in order to destroy them. I mean, if Iran builds nuclear bunkers underground, then the only way to destroy the nuclear bunker is to get down to the depths and destroy it. The only way to kill these fortresses of evil is for the Messiah himself to go down to them and destroy them. They think they've got him. They think he's sinning. They think he's betraying his people. And yet what he's really doing is getting into the fortress so that he can blow it up. And to end the evening with one really, really simple but cool quote, okay? In the morning prayers, we have morning blessings, blessings that you say when you wake up in the morning. Nowadays, these are sometimes mumbled very fast in the synagogue, but it's not meant to be that way. And these blessings are really meant for the actual movements that you do when you wake up in the morning. You have Baruch Atah, blessed are you, Pokeach Ivrim. You say that when you open your eyes. Okay? And there's others for various things. But the next stage is Baruch Atah Matir Asurim. He who frees those who are shackled. Because when you sleep, you don't have control over your limbs. It's like you're tied up. All right, you're chained. And so when you wake up in the morning and you stretch your limbs, you say, Baruch Atah Matir Asurim, right? You freed my limbs. You free. Matir Asurim means was free those who are chained. Shabbetai Zvi changed this blessing a little bit. Instead of blessing, blessed are you, Matir Asurim, who frees those who are shackled, he blessed Baruch Atah, you see the words here, Matir Isurim.
Oh.
You know what that means? Who permits that which
The
is
things that
forbidden.
are that are forbidden.
Blessed are you. I can't hear you. Who's speaking?
Matir Isurim permits
Matir
those,
Isurim.
but permits the things that are forbidden.
Exactly.
We have Asurim and Isurim. Asurim are those who are chained, and Isurim are prohibitions. Shabbetai Zvi changed the blessing. Baruch Atah Matir Isurim. Blessed are you, O Lord, who when you send the Messiah, when you bring the redemption, you make that which was prohibited become permitted.
But it's not such a big thing that he did here, because if you say asur, is also not, it's forbidden. Matir asurim, so he just took away the word dvarim asurim. And instead of matir dvarim asurim, he made matir isurim, and that's it. Because he actually changed the idea of asurim, chained to things that are not, that are forbidden. Dvarim asurim. So he said, yeah, it's
He
a
did it
semantic.
cleverly. He really only had to change a single letter and a single vowel. Okay, this gets to some of the most colorful aspects of the Sabbatean movement. They had all kinds of things. The radical Sabbateans didn't just let Shabbetai Zvi do it, and Shabbetai Zvi didn't do all the stuff, by the way. The radical Sabbateans did things. They would, first of all, they would party on fast days. Okay, you can take that in a simple sense that, if the Messiah is here already, then why mourn and why fast? But it's also because, hey, you go down to the depths of evil. There would be public orgies. They had a lot of sexual licentiousness, a lot of nihilism, okay? And we'll talk about where next week when we come back to this, we'll talk about where this went, okay? The end of his career, the end of his life, and where this went in the century or two afterwards, okay? Because some of the stuff continued. And we'll also do the passage, because it's a really cool passage that by accident I skipped. We'll also do the passage by Natan Azati about the Torah being changed or canceled in the Messianic age.
I have
So
to
what we,
say,
yeah,
it sounds
go ahead.
like if this was a vision of the Messianic age, it really does not appeal to me at all.
It may not appeal to you, but I bet there are people that it both appealed to and still appeals to. You sound like the opposite of a soldier that I once had. I described Maimonides' idea of the world to come, that it's all intellectual and it's just learning. So the soldier told me that Maimonides' idea of the world to come sounds like my idea of hell. Okay? And you're saying the exact opposite now. But, to each his own.
I have a question. Can I ask?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't so much understood about redemption. When he, in the end of his career, he said, I am Muslimic, so I understand because he didn't want to die. And then he explained this, Natan Hazati explained it in a very beautiful way. But before all this thing about Muslim came, before the king says him that he must be Muslimic, yes? At the beginning of his career, when people really believed in him and so on, what was the redemption, like Joshua's redemption of Joshua was that he was killed, yes? He was killed and then he redeemed. what was the redemption of Shabbetai Zvi? He didn't make something dangerous. He didn't make it.
That we read, Masha, we read that explicitly. The kind of redemption that Jesus brought was to redeem humanity from its sins. That's the classic Christian idea of redemption. But the classic Jewish idea of redemption is different, and we saw a text that spoke about it explicitly. The Jewish idea of redemption is that the Messiah gathers the Jews from all four corners of the world to the land of Israel, and he builds the temple and becomes king of the world. And that's exactly what he and his followers and his ideologues proclaimed. That's what he was going to do. That's why he went to the Sultan, to take the Sultan's crown and to give the land of Israel back to the Jews. Okay? People here are laughing, but in the weeks to come, we're going to have to talk about modern Jewish movements. There was also a modern Jewish, perhaps, Messiah who went to the Sultan to ask for the land of Israel. Right? Shabbetai Zvi wasn't the last one. And but we'll talk about that stuff in the weeks to come.
She wanted that every Jewish man will make the redemption, or only he must make the redemption? Like a simple Jew also must make redemption, some redemption, or only he must?
Shabbetai Zvi was picked by God.
Okay.
Right? God sent a vision that you are my Messiah, not anybody else.
Okay.
But that's not the only thing. The people, the actual people, followed him, sold all their belongings, put together their stuff, and started going with him.
66. That's next week, and you're right. Okay, but it was him. You know, it couldn't have been anyone else. It was him. The movement proclaimed it as him in particular, not anybody else.
Thank you.
Jennifer asked, it was a cult. And I think, well, next week we'll talk about the aftermath. Maybe you can call the aftermath a cult. But you cannot call this a cult. This is the majority of the Jewish people. This is millions. Okay? And most of them, again, are moderate Sabbateans. They're not Meshuggah Sabbateans. They're people who say the Messiah has come. This is very wonderful. And we keep observing the Torah. We keep going on with our lives. And then when it turns out that he's not the Messiah, well, we're disappointed. Okay? So to describe it as a cult, the way we think of cults today, also doesn't exactly fit.
Except the inner place, the inner core. The inner core you can describe as a cult.
Meaning that the leader of a cult might be a personality like this, and he might have a prophet like that who, you know, who gets his movement going. Yeah. But this was a very widespread movement. We'll do more of that next week. And everyone have a good, healthy, wonderful, successful week.
Thank you so much.
You too, Avi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, yes, thank you for giving me the link, because I couldn't do it without you.
Giving you the link. Did I send the link on WhatsApp?
No. Irina sent me the link.